Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with Conspicuous. Now, we're joined by two very familiar faces, I'm sure. One is obviously co host Nico Roussos from Conspicuous, and another one who we all know as the New Zealand D365 guy is Mark Smith. So, we're very, very happy to have you on, and we really appreciate your time. But yeah, for those that may not know you, let's give them a little overview of who you are, obviously where you've come from, and let's talk a little bit about that.
Excellent. My name is Mark Smith. I came from my mother's womb a very long time ago.
That's the best introduction we've had.
No, I'm from New Zealand. I've lived in the UK for a while. I've lived in Australia for a while. I've lived in Spain for a while, and yeah, I do work all over the world. The big thing I'm on at the moment, I'm a director of a company headquartered in London, which is called Cloud Lighthouse, and we do strategic consulting around the Microsoft cloud for large customers across the US and Europe. That's me.
Amazing. That's great. And I know, Nikki, you've slightly bumped into Mark before whilst traveling to a conference, but this is probably our first full conversation with Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I bumped into Market Dynamics Minds, but he's very well travelled. He's very committed. I'm for sure. Obviously, coming over to Europe and here, there, and everywhere for the conferences all the way from New Zealand. So yeah, Dynamics Minds this year it was. I think
It was
bumped into him on the flight and then walking through Heathrow or Gatwick. I can't remember now.
Gatwick, yeah.
For then your onward journey all the way over to back to New Zealand. So.
That's it. And you didn't really bump into me. You let me sleep. I was sleeping in the same row as you, right? And you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't say anything until we were walking through the airport, and then you were like,
No, well, I didn't. I thought that would be a bit mean. People that have been to these conferences know how full on and tiring they can be. So that's probably about the first time you managed to sleep in about 3 days. So I thought I'd be nice and
yeah.
let you be until we were walking through the passport control.
Thank you.
So obviously with yourself, Mark, we knew that you obviously work for your consultancy, and with that you've got many other strings to your bow. One being you do host your own podcast as well, so he's very
Mhm.
accustomed to this type of setting that we're currently doing. And you also have a 90-day mentoring challenge, don't you? So
Yes.
it would be good to know. I know a lot of people out there, I think mentoring has been something that's come up in my podcast quite a lot about the importance of it. Some people are a little bit reluctant to ask for it, and I'm hoping today we can maybe shine the light on why it's fantastic, what it entails, and see your own approach to it, really.
Yeah, sounds good. So I started mentoring because after running practices for some time in various countries, I noticed that when you work for an organization and you mentor staff, you generally mentor them in the interest of the company. You don't
Right.
mentor them in the interest of the individual. And if you're a coach, you coach in the interest of the team, not necessarily coach in the interest of the individual. Though, if you can bring out great individual performance, it does, of course, positively affect the team. And so I want to do coaching that wasn't associated with the partner, wasn't associated with employer, wasn't associated with Microsoft. But my career of 20 years has been in Microsoft Dynamics 365 to start with, and then the Power Platform more recent times, and now it's transitioning squarely into the AI space. So I wanted to, if I was going to offer, mentoring, I wanted to do it where I, as the mentor, didn't have any skin in the game on purpose. In other words, I didn't have a vested interest in somebody doing well outside of really helping them do well, right? And so one of the philosophies that I teach from the start is um, pay it forward. From that movie from years ago about a teacher, I think a ninth grade teacher, setting instruction to his class that to come up with an idea that would change the world. and to the 9th grade students. And this kid he came up with the idea that you need to find 3 people and do 3 awesome things for them. And you needed to do it in such a way that really they couldn't pay you back. It was one way, but an outward way, And one of the samples, a guy writes his car off in a car accident, and this wealthy dude with a flash at his car comes up and just says, "Here's the keys to my car." And he's like, "What do you mean? What are you giving?" He goes, "Listen, just consider it kindness between 2 strangers. And that's it. Never met again." Gave him a gift. And it's kind of like, it's an empowering thing where you can impart something to somebody else and literally not expect anything in return and let that blossom into whatever it becomes. And so, yeah, that's a real driver for me to see how many people that I can impact and help them have an amazing life, an amazing career. Careers don't need to suck. They can be awesome. But a lot of people haven't worked out how to make them awesome, and that there's actually things that you can do to have an awesome career, but you've got to actually learn how to do them. And I was shocked to find in the first year of mentoring, I remember I had this one guy on the challenge from the US, and he worked for Fender Guitars. Excuse me. He worked for Fender Guitars, and he'd become a Dynamics CRM admin at the organization. And so you got to think his first exposure to Dynamics was as an admin. So he was just maintaining or keeping the lights on in a system. Oh, we need a new user. Awesome. I'll add you on as a user. So pretty benign. And because I paint out this whole world of everything that you can possibly do in business application space, from founding your own company to working for Microsoft to being a functional consultant inside an organization, all the other peripheral roles that, sit. And so he was blown away. He had no idea that there were so many roads that he could tread, outside of that. And in a short space of time, he left Fender. He ended up working for Hitachi Solutions in the US and went on to become a senior architect on the Dynamics platform. And I was just like, man, if he never had come on the challenge, he probably would have never, ever been exposed to actually, one, how massive the community is out here, that we have.
Yeah.
And that there's so many opportunities and, that you can take and, I love the Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, because I feel it's a book of unlimited possibilities. And yeah, there's hard times, there's waiting times, and there's, you're going nowhere times. But if you keep having a mindset of opportunity is out there, how do I align with it? What do I need to do to get there? And if you can find some people along the way that have perhaps done it before and can say, hey, look, this worked for me. And the thing is, about something that works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And so one of the other things I always mentor is, listen, I'm going to say some stuff. You might not agree with it, and that's okay. When you sit down to a meal, and you might not like everything on it. I say, eat what's good, spit out what you don't like, carry on, right? So, yeah, and that's I don't think you should ever take what everybody says as the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and just religiously follow them. You should only take the bits that kind of resonate with who you are as a person and take those elements forward.
Yeah, I really, really like that sort of philosophy and the thought process that you've got there. And as you say, the community that we're in within this Dynamics Power Platform space is incredible. There's so many people. I mean, obviously, I've spent most of my career, the last 10 and a half years, working in this industry, in this space. So I'm not familiar with other places. But, one thing that is incredible, which is from all over the world, all the conferences, is the community sort of element and how willing people are to help, to collaborate together. It's not, you don't see different companies necessarily as competitors. Everyone's willing to help and to share knowledge and to give advice. And as you say, that mentorship thing is an incredible thing to help people, because they aren't going to know necessarily what their career path could be if they haven't had that exposure or been spoken to someone. that has been through it themselves. So yeah, I think that's an incredibly important point that you just touched on there.
And I think it's also more the fact, I mean, there was so much I could probably pick out from what you've just spoken about, but like the whole one shoe does not fit all. That I think that is massive. And I think Mark, you know AJ, is that right? AJ Safar?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
AJ.
So he came on my podcast the other week, and I don't know whether you managed to watch it, but we were, I know it was a
The
funny one,
fancy
but like
dress.
yeah,
Yeah. It was a Halloween one, right?
Yeah, the
it
Halloween.
Halloween special.
it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
But he touched upon a really important thing which I think really intertwines with what you've just said is what someone else's passion might be isn't the same as someone else's. So as you said, you can't, how mentoring usually is within what the business wants or whatever it may be. And he was touching upon the fact that it's so important that when you're learning or you want to achieve those next strides in your career, you really need to focus on the things that you enjoy, whether it's making fun little drinking robots or whatever it may be. That's the way you're going to learn, because I don't think people will realize their potential if you're trying to put the Cinderella shoe on someone's foot, which is, yeah, like a size 10. So,
Yeah.
it is so important. And with how does it sort of work, Mark? So do you do it in like different cycles, or is it one person comes to you and then you just start the 90 days, or is it grouped? How does it work?
That's a good question. So when I started it, it was literally 90 days. So we'd meet once every fortnight. It was all live, and this is live, is in like everything being online now is kind of like common, but you got to take back to pre-COVID 2017, 18. I can never remember which year, whether I was walking the Camino in 2017 and then I was in London 2018, I think it was. It must have been 2018. When I decided to do it, it was like nobody was doing online live sessions for these type of things. And so it was quite novel. As I say, I don't think, yeah, Teams was around, but I was using Zoom at the time, and they were live. And so, I had a wall of faces staring back at me because people would have their camera, and there would be the banter going on in the chat was just epic. And one of the common things that would come out is like, this has got to be the best 90-day mentoring challenge ever. And the thing is, what nobody realized, I heard that over and over and over again, because the community they formed around that 90-day period, not only run it once a year. And then what happened is that leading up to, because I never decided that I'm definitely doing it next year, so I would just have a wait list, and that wait list would get up to 300-400 people sitting on the wait list
wow.
for whenever I announced when I was going to do the next one. And I would be like, oh heck, I need to do another one, right? Because all these people are waiting to do it. And so then I would like go, okay, I'm going to do it from January, February, March, because then I'm the type of person that if I have an open loop in my brain, it distracts me, right? So let's say I didn't do it in January, and therefore all of January I'd be like, heck, I got to launch this in February. And then if I didn't do it in February, and that would be the churn through the year. And like if I didn't launch to June, all those cycles I've burnt every month. And so I was like, no, I'm going to do it in January, February, March. And so I'd basically in November go, hey, registrations are open, let's join. And of course there was, people, and I've probably got more into the psychology of understanding people in relationship to these type of programs as time's gone on. Because what I've noticed is that coming up to New Year's resolution, the number of people wanting to enroll goes through the roof because I'm going to make a change in my life in the coming year, and the crazy thing is, I was just listening to something around the psychology of change the other day. And do you know that in human nature, the New Year's resolution is pretty much the only way most people know how to change. And by the 20th of January, they're feeling disappointed because they have not stuck with their change, right? Whether that's,
Oh my God.
the New Year's resolution that I was able to keep, it was years ago. And I said, oh, my New Year's resolution is to get fatter. It's the one New Year's resolution that I kept all year long,
So
right?
good.
Man, that one worked. But most people, right, you get to whether it's like, I'm going to have better relationships, or I'm going to make more money, or you're going like, I'm going to blog some more, or I'm going to go out of way to be nice to people. And whatever it is, lose weight, of course, is a big one for a lot of people on New Year's resolution, just after they've eaten Christmas dinner, on the
Yeah.
25th. And the thing is, so I get this massive uptake, but what was happening is that all these people were subscribing and wanting to be involved whenever the next one came out. And then when I moved back to New Zealand, which was end of 2019, just before COVID, I started doing 2 time zones as in for that 90-day period. So I'd get up and I'd do an AM time zone, my time, and then a PM time zone. And that was to allow people to still jump on. And then I kept getting people completing the challenge and go, wow, I did that whole challenge at 3 a.m. in the morning each time. Like, they would wake up, they didn't want to miss the lives. I always gave them the recordings afterwards, but there's something
Yeah.
different to a live session, right? And then a recording session, because you can have all that banter. And and because I would see the chat recording after, and like people would be talking smack against each other, all that kind of stuff in the chat. But there was a really community vibe that was created in that sphere, and a really encouraging vibe. People would encourage. I always worked on a model, one up, one down. So in the list of, let's say I had 300 people, that actually were in the intake, it would be like you had to look at the person above you alphabetically in the list and the person below you, and you had to check in with them once a week, the one above and the one below. So it kind of, and then if you couldn't make contact with that person, you need to skip them and go to the one above them to try and create this, because it got unwieldy for me to do one-on-ones with
Yeah, of
300
course.
people at a time. And so when it came about that more and more people, as I was doing, I think I've got up to 60 or 70 countries now involved in the challenge. Over 1,200 people have gone through it. And I was getting to the point of, how do I make it so that it is even more accessible when people they get the urge to make change? And so the model that I now run is, it's always on. So I have people signing up every week and they start the challenge. And when what happens though is that for the 90-day period, the course drip feeds every Sunday. It drops the next module. So there's 12
Right.
modules. When I started, there only used to be 6. There's now 12 modules. And every Sunday, they drop the next one. They can work through at their own pace. But it means that if some people get behind also, they don't feel they get behind so far that they drop out.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the last thing I want is people to not complete it, but knowing that not everyone's going to complete it in 90 days. Some might take a year
Yeah.
to complete it. That's okay. I've got folks that started in January this year that still haven't completed it. And they pop in every now and again. So, sorry, trying to get back on the wagon, the old saying to get back into it. And the thing is that life, it gets in the way. I've had all
Yeah.
sorts of scenarios. There's been deaths in the family. There's been, mishaps with children. There's all sorts of things. Then each individual has to sort out what's their priority, and it's right for them. If my kid is, I've got a daughter turning 4 tomorrow, and if something comes up at her daycare or something, everything else drops, because that's my number one priority in life, right? My ultimate definition of success is that when I am old, that my adult children will want to hang out with me.
Yeah.
They will want to be my
I love
friend.
that.
That's the definition of success for me. It's not money. It's not title. It's not doing more time in the office. It's, do my adult children want to hang out with me because we're friends? And that's it. If I can achieve that goal, my life has been successful.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, I absolutely love that sort of thought process. That's incredible.
And I think you're doing such a great thing as well, because you're minimizing that failure rate for people. And as you said, with New Year's resolutions, as soon as you fail at one hurdle, people think they're a disappointment, they chuck in the
Yeah.
towel, and that's that. So the fact you've really looked at this program with such a holistic approach. I would say you've really looked
Yeah.
at every element to make people feel successful, to make people feel driven, and I think it's so important. And the fact that you're working in 70 odd countries and over 1,200 people, and the connections you've probably made between people, even if it's that upper or lower person, they're probably still in contact after the 90 days, and they've got shoulders to lean on, which I think is, as both Nico and yourself have touched upon, it's community. And I think that word literally comes up in every podcast, and I don't
Yeah.
get bored of it, because
No.
it is the biggest part, I think, of everyone's careers within this industry, and it is just, it's lovely. It's so
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
after the 90-day mentoring challenge, there's an alumni group that people can then join.
Oh wow.
And that alumni group is now split into multiple subgroups. So there's a freelancer subgroup. There's I've got jobs that I need people that are available. There is a group that's saying I'm looking for work. There's a group for folks that want to become MVPs. There's a group for content creators. How do I create content consistently? All with the lens of Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. And it's been crazy because I know of at least 3 people that have gone through the challenge, have gone on to found their own companies and Microsoft partners. One of them is currently in the in the, I forget what they call it, in Australia. It's the top 50 fastest growing companies in Australia.
Oh, wow.
So built a solution on the Power Platform, sold it to all the local governments across Australia, done extremely successfully. Another one set up a Microsoft implementation business. He came to me recently and said, within 2 years, I was doing over 2 million per annum and in his
Yeah.
business. And then the number of people that have even gone on to roles inside Microsoft that have gone through the challenge. I've got people on the challenge right now that are full-time FTEs at Microsoft, and they're
Oh,
on the
Blimey.
challenge because they're wanting to go, because what I'm teaching is not the tech skills. I'm teaching the career skills, the holistic skills of what I've noticed from people who've got ahead in their career as opposed to those that haven't got ahead in their career, and what are the differences. And I just point them out. This is how someone that I've seen get ahead do it. This is what they do. And this is how people that create many career limiting moves in their career, these are the things that they do. These are the handbrakes that they put on themselves. And I really try to just create an environment where I don't have the answers, but I'm providing a smorgasbord of all the different ways you could look at this. And then each individual has to make the choices for their own. Because see, like I had someone come to me and they say that recently, I'm like, what should I focus on? Should it be this? Should it be this? Or should it be this? And I said, listen, if I make that decision for you and I say if I was you, I would do this, and it doesn't work for you, then you can go, oh, it was not my fault. It was because Mark advised me wrong. Right?
Yeah.
It's like it allows people to abscond from ownership of something. And so I'm like, listen, you've got to make that ultimate choice for yourself. It's your life, it's your career. You can, and the thing is, most people that I've observed, a lot of people in their careers, they abdicate responsibility for their careers to their boss. And if they don't go ahead, it's their boss's fault. If they do get ahead, it's because I had a good boss or whatever. But it's up to whether what you do will depend on how far you go. It's each individual's responsibility to own the outcomes. And, this goes right down to schedule management. Either
Yeah.
your boss will own your schedule, or your clients will own your schedule, or you will own it. And the
Yeah.
quicker you understand that, oh no, I don't have that choice because I'm poor little underling me, or, I'm in a subordinate role. You don't understand the dynamics of human nature and how the minute you don't run your life, there's plenty other people that run it for you.
Very
Mm.
true.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And just sort of on that and the sort of advice that you do provide, Mark, and it's something that I'm sure a lot of people will have seen if they follow you on LinkedIn, is the videos. I think they're pretty much daily of all the different advice, like the ones recently, the power of
Mhm.
saying no. I saw, there's about the soft skills, and I think the soft skills thing is something that
Massive.
you're a massive advocate for, and probably is a big part of your mentoring challenge. So I mean, where do you see the importance of the tech skills versus the soft skills side of things?
Yeah, that's interesting. Tech skills are easy to learn. Soft skills are hard,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
soft skills will give you the biggest results in your career. Tech skills won't, except for we tech skills are much more measurable than soft skills,
for sure.
right? And so people go, oh, I'll go out and get a certification that will prove that I know something. And of course, for anybody that's been in it for ages, know that certifications don't prove that you know anything. It proves that
Yeah.
you can pass an exam, you can follow a cheat sheet, and you can get the ABCD questions right.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean that you have the skills, that you have skills to solve problems, that you have skills to understand the dynamics going on in an engagement with a customer, that you have the skills to understand politics that might be happening and conflict happening between the customer that you're working for and the other people in an organization. I've been in board meetings where the CFO and the CEO literally had a shouting match about how they saw, and by the way, this was a large company. This is
wow.
part of the largest telecommunication company in Australia, and I was just like,
Yeah, I can
a-
imagine.
and you're there and you're watching this, and one of the things I talk about is being able to observe the elephant in the room and then call it out, right? When you can
Yeah.
see a senior manager in a room and you're running a workshop and they keep just derailing the conversation, you can either let them go on and derail it and derail the workshop, the project in effect, or you can go, you know what, I'm going to put my big pants on and I'm going to confront this. And it doesn't mean you confront it publicly. You might take them aside and say, listen, this is my observation. Just someone looking from the outside, you're a dick, right? You,
Yeah,
you're just shutting everybody down. You know, if you want a successful project, you're the number one reason why this is not going to be successful. Listen, you've got to have good internal fortitude to be able to have those difficult conversations. And that's why, you know, I've talked just recently one about being a yes person, right? To everything. Because I've seen so many consultants, customers, can it do this? Yes, it can. Can you do this? Yes. And in the mind, the customer's going, well, when I ask you that I want you to do it, and you're going, no, the actual software can do it, because you know, you're nodding your head off in agreement to say, yes, everything is possible. But for every yes, there is a cost, and there is a scope creep, and there is a implication. And so that's what, you know, good consultants have got to do. They've got to be able to go, hang on a second, let me understand what you're asking for here.
Yeah.
And oh, if you want that, you've also said that you want this timeline. That timeline has to go away. Like a good consultant allows the bringing up of the implications of the decisions being requested. You know, I've been in a situation, and by the way, and when shit hits the fan at a customer project, you can guarantee the customer will never say it's their fault.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
You're going to be scapegoat number one. And another saying that I teach a lot is a problem never gets better with time.
Yeah.
Right? The
Yeah.
longer you leave it, the longer you leave it unconfronted, the longer you leave it unaddressed, it only gets worse. And I use an example in a project I was in. The senior architect on the project knew there was a problem 6 months before he brought it to my attention.
Wow.
6
Not
months.
6 months. 9 months later, there was a court case about the project.
Oh.
Right? And so what was the project? The issue? There was an internal conflict. One person wanted, and the leadership team wanted to go this way. The other one wanted to go this way. Both those people got promoted and went to different parts of the organization, had nothing to do with the active project. And so therefore, the new people that came in didn't have any of that history, what was happening, what was going on. They're like, no, we want it to go this way. And of course, in a project that has maybe fixed, outcomes, fixed deliverables, fixed cost,
Yeah,
that can have a massive impact. And the senior architect, which by the way, I have my architects are always responsible for projects, not PMs, which in the industry, PMs like to think they're the most senior, in my experience, and they should never be.
Yeah.
It's and bring it on if you want to attack me on it, but I'll show you project after project. Especially if you're an agile religious master in the industry, and you treat agile like a religion, which I've seen a lot of zealots do in this space. At the end of the day, the customer wants a project delivered. They want an outcome. They don't give a rip about what methodology you use to get it done, as long as it gets done. And yeah, I digress. It's a point that I've seen so many people just tear projects apart because they think their roles are most important. For me, it's architects, and I say, get the problem. The minute you sniff a problem when I'm running the business behind it, I want to know straight away, because we want to get in, we want to solve it quickly, we want to address it, we want to elevate it to the right executive level, so we're transparent and so we can get outcomes. Because the longer it delays and festers, it gets mixed up, it gets complicated. And so, yeah, I like to teach those skills to kind of give people the tools they need to be successful in their job by understanding all the things that are not technically related in the projects they're working on. The tech is the easy bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think that is super important. And as you said, we've touched upon some of the success you've had from this mentorship, but also, when there isn't success, what that horror can sort of look like. And it is an everyday thing that customers face. And the soft skills, they play a huge part in that consultancy. You've got to be that active listener, be able to actually listen to the requirements, and as you say, not just saying yes to everything when really you might not be able to. So I think that's super important. One thing I will say is, I know we've all just sort of blabbered on. If we've missed any comments, we will get back to them after the podcast. It's just been quite a good chat, so we've sort of not paid attention there, so very sorry. But what just a bit of a personal question here, Mark. Obviously you're doing a lot. You work full time, you have your mentorship, you also help people with their MVP programs, you obviously host your podcasts. What you're doing is incredible. How do you manage to balance it all? You said you've got your family as well. It's
Traveling to Europe all the time.
It's
Here, there, and
amazing.
everywhere.
Yeah. How do you manage it all? It's incredible.
One word: batching. I
Okay.
batch things, right? So when I podcast, I podcast on the first 3 days of the month, the first Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of the month, and then I don't podcast till the next month. But in those 3 days, I will do up to 8 podcasts a day for 3 days, right? And so I do everything, because if I can lock my brain in an area of flow where I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm not context switching, right? I'm getting into a flow. I can get a lot done in a short period of time, because I'm not wasting time on context switching. I'm staying with that focus area. And of course, I never started like that. I used to do it any time the guest could work it into their schedule. Now I set the schedule, and the clients can my guests in this case, can either attend in that window, which I make friendly for time zones, of course. And it's very rare that I'll do something out of band of that for a guest coming on my show. And so that's an example of where I batch. The other thing is that AI changes the game so much in how you can scale. Like, one of my goals that I'm working very actively on at the moment is that how could I work only 20 hours a week but get 40 hours of productivity?
Yeah.
How could I only work 10 hours a week and get 80 hours of productivity? Right?
That would be nice.
Right. Well, my actual goal is work 8 hours for the week and get 500 hours of productivity. That's my actual target that I'm working on at the moment.
Wow.
And why
If
I've
you
set
find
such
that,
a crazy the reason I've set such a crazy target, right, is because if you're looking, for example, at finance, and you go, what do I need to do to make 100,000 quid? It's a lot different. The things that you need to do to make 100,000 quid is a lot different than you need to do to make 1,000,000 quid. And the thing is, a lot of people focus on the I need to get to 100,000 quid, and so their activities what they do to be able to get to that point will only get them to that 100,000 target. But if they go for the million target, the things that they would do for 100,000 will not be the same as what they need to do to go to 1,000,000. But what they'll do is blow the 100,000 target away because they're focusing on the million and go, the only way I'm going to scale, I'm going to have to do something way different than just incremental gains here. I have to do something transformative in my thinking and my approach if I'm going to hit 1,000,000 quid. And the thing is, so many people focus on tiny, small targets, and they go, well, how could I write one blog post a week? How about in one day you wrote 30 blog posts for the month? See, if you answer that question, you will easily be able to hit your one a week, because you have to think about this game way, way differently if you're going to go for a large scale. And I think that's how I get stuff in, is that I look at and the 90 Mentoring Challenge was done like this as well. How can I scale my time? I cannot meet with 300 people solo one-on-one and have the effect that I could have if I could have them all meet me one to many. I could have a much bigger impact and effect. And so that's how I've scaled that program. So it's not like that I have to keep putting in more and more hours now. Yes, I refine the course, I keep updating the modules and things, but they're all tweaks on, let's say, a 90% there point for any of those modules. The tweaks I'm making, I've got a module on AI, and of course that's always changing, so I'm updating that. But when I look at scale and looking at getting things done, and that's one of my big books, so that's shaped my career about 15 years ago, a book called GTD, Getting Things Done, is that you've got to come up with scaling options that are going to absolutely destroy your small goals by blowing them out of the water, by focusing on much bigger goals. That's what they say, shoot for the stars, right? And if you can really understand that, you might hit the moon, right? And the crazy thing about that is that that's about setting big goals, because you're going to do way different things. That might not mean you hit the stars, but you're absolutely going to blast out those intermediary goals, which are currently your primary goals in your career. And so, if you say, listen, I'm going to be the CTO and I'm going to do it within the next 3 years, if you said that as opposed to I'm going to do it within the next 20, your actions tomorrow are going to be way different if you've given yourself a 3-year timeline rather than a 20-year timeline.
I don't
And
know
that's how
about
I
you,
think about
Nico.
everything.
I feel very inspired. If I work
I
really
was
hard
going to
this
say,
week, you know why?
it's a really interesting way of thinking, because so many people always talk about set yourself small goals, set yourself small targets. But as you say, it makes perfect sense. Why not just go, like you say, shoot for the stars? Why not? What have you got to lose? And then your actions are going to be accelerated or in fifth gear rather than in second or third gear.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, really, really like that thought process, and it makes complete sense, because so many people do focus on small, tiny little targets, get there, gradually. So yeah, I'm gonna review my targets after this call.
Literally, I was just about to say that's completely like different to my mindset. As Nico just
Yeah.
said, like mine's small achievable targets. Hope I get through the week with those little targets. Do you know what I mean? Like
Well,
you get told that.
well, we've
But
got New
why?
Year's resolutions coming up, and now
Yeah.
aim for the stars. There we go.
Well, yeah, I mean,
So,
I'll probably give you a Teams call after this, Nico, and we'll plan how we can get that
world
moon. But
domination. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, honestly, like Mark, it's like I'm talking to like Stephen Bartlett or something. Your words are so inspiring. I know that we have sort of run over, so we do apologise. That it's been a bit longer, and to be honest, so I could probably talk for another hour or so, knowing more about you. It's absolutely amazing what you're doing for this community. I'm so glad you and Nico reached out and you were able to come on this podcast. I think it will help a lot of people. I mean, you've just blown our minds with our mindsets. So hopefully you've had the same impact on everyone else viewing today. I know what we'll do. We'll share obviously your LinkedIn so people can connect with you if they've got any questions. And of course we'll put the linking for the 90-day mentoring challenge and any other sort of useful information that we've touched upon this podcast. I don't know if you've got anything else you want to sort of wrap up on, Nico, at all before we ask the final question.
The only thing from my point of view, and it's something that I do fairly regularly as well, is definitely follow Mark and watch his videos. They're really, really insightful and incredibly helpful, and they're very quick, short snippets as well. So it's if you don't follow Mark already, or you're looking for help to progress your career, definitely watch his LinkedIn updates and videos.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And have you got any sort of last words to say, Mark, before we ask you the final question?
No, as in this has been fun. I'm looking forward to the final question.
So, okay, the final question is, if you were not doing what you're currently doing in your career, so within the IT industry, doing all the amazing things, what would you be doing as a job?
I'd be a gigolo.
That's a great one.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, I mean, I think that concludes the episode. Honestly, it's been brilliant having you on. You know, as we said, if you have seen Mark's podcast or not, definitely check them out. They'll be just as good as this one. And he brings on some brilliant guests as well. But it's just been amazing. I'm sure we'll stay in touch. Might see you asleep on another flight next year, maybe. And yeah, we'll reply back to any comments that are there after the podcast. But if not, look out for the links, connect with Mark, say hello, introduce yourself. As you can tell, he's very lovely, so he won't bite. And yeah, we'll see you all next week for another episode.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.